What is up, enthusiasts? It is Cedar Flags here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So today is the day. This is a video that I have been waiting to make all year. I love making these videos so much, counting down my top roller coasters. And as my coaster count grows, I would like to extend the amount of roller coasters that I want to rank. Generally, my rule of thumb is to rank the top 10% of all roller coasters that I've been on. And as of December of 2022, my coaster count is 299. You all know how this works. I'm going to start off with some honorable mentions and then get into the big dogs. Every single roller coaster I talk about today is a very great coaster. Even the rides that did not make the top lists, this still is a list to celebrate the best rides I've been on. Now, this is not a collection of the best coasters in the world, but only the best that I've personally been on. And also remember, this is all based completely on my opinion. So, whatever goes is my personal opinion and should not be taken with fact. So, let's get into it. This is Cedar Flags, and today, I will be ranking my top 30 coasters with some honorable mentions for 2022. Let's get right into the honorable mentions. First, I want to start off with a coaster that is in many people's top 10 lists. It is the Voyage at Holiday World. I was pretty disappointed by this coaster on the day that we went to Holiday World. It was just not running to what I was expecting. I barely got any airtime, if any at all, and the little airtime I got was pretty forceless. Though I do commemorate this ride because of its incredible layout, and I feel like if the moments I experienced had airtime, this would be much higher on my top 30 list. Goliath at Six Flags Great America near Chicago is a great RMC that placed on my top 20 last year, but as I've ridden more coasters and got a re-ride, this ride has definitely dropped a little bit. Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa is quite possibly the roller coaster that has taken the steepest dive in my rankings in the past few years, only because the recent rides that I've gotten were a little subpar compared to the rides I got in the past. Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Orlando is a very big cult classic. This roller coaster themed after the movie franchise is a great Premier Rides themed coaster. It really isn't too thrilling besides the incredible airtime moments, but I think the storyline definitely deserves a great mention on this list. Fifth on the list is Fury 325, another roller coaster that many people would put in their top 10 or even top 5 on their list, but personally, I find this ride to be a little overrated. Raven at Holiday World is one of the best CCIs I have ever been on. This roller coaster has a layout in the woods, and everything from its first drop to its low to the ground layout to its infamous fifth drop, this ride, especially in the back, provides a very thrilling experience and is my current favorite coaster at the park. And finally, we have Phoenix and Twister at Knoebels. These are the big two at the park, and I really love both of these rides, and they provide very different things for a great diverse top 2 in its park. And truly, the only reason that these two coasters aren't on the list is because they've gotten bumped off because I've ridden more coasters. And finally, we get to our top 30 list. Starting off our list at the number 30 spot, we have my favorite GCI roller coaster. It is Thunderhead at Dollywood. This ride provides a very compact layout, and the moments that it provides are pretty forceful. The ride is pretty smooth too if you sit in the right row, and the very fast, long, and sprawling layout is definitely complementing to the park it is in. My favorite part easily is the station flyby. You see everything come with you at a glance, and it truly is the highlight of a great elite wooden coaster. At the number 29 spot, we have a pretty hot take in Gemini at Cedar Point. One of my favorite coasters at the point, and my favorite aero coaster of all time. This ride provides some incredible airtime as long as you are sitting in the back row. The negative G's on this ride are second to none. I love a ride like Magnum XL 200 and its ride airtime, but I think that Gemini's is just a little stronger and more spread out. A coaster that took a considerable dive in my number 28 spot is Diamondback at Kings Island. This used to be my favorite coaster at the park, but some re-rides in 2022 and I bumped it down a little bit. That is not to say though that this B&M Hyper has great airtime and a very long layout. If you get to ride this on a good day, it might feel like the ride with the most airtime on the planet. You get so much airtime, and if you're sitting in the back, you are going to be dragged over every hill. At the 27th spot, we have a roller coaster I have not been on since 2018, but a coaster I remember very vividly. It is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. This ride specializes in very, very intense turns, and in the positive G category, this ride is the king. This ride has very low to the ground elements, and for a Giga coaster, has some of the best pacing in the world. The only reason I have this coaster at a lower spot than maybe some other enthusiasts is because I do wish that this ride had a little more variety as opposed to its low to the ground theme. At the number 26 spot, we revisit Dollywood to talk about the one and the only Lightning Rod. One of the most infamous roller coasters out there for its very unreliable nature, this ride has definitely made so many headlines. Though I only got to ride this in 2022, way after its full potential has been ruined. Even though this ride is a former shell of what it used to be, I definitely still enjoy it. The first half though was pretty lackluster. It had some floater airtime, which is pretty subpar for an RMC like this, though the saving grace of this ride is definitely the quad down. That quad down has some of the most intense negative G moments ever, and the setting that it's in truly makes this for me. For our number 25 spot, we go from the south to New England to talk about Wicked Cyclone. This New England RMC is the only one in its region, and this ride is very compact. I absolutely love how this layout intertwines with itself so many times, and I love how you take multiple laps around said layout. Though I did expect this ride to be a little more forceful in the airtime category, the moments it delivered were pretty good, especially the first Outer Bank turn, which very pleasantly surprised me. The inversions on this ride are great too, with the final inversion providing some great hang time. And though it doesn't have negative G moments as powerful as some of the coasters that are going to be ahead on this list, I do commemorate this ride for the layout that it has. Coming in with our number 24 spot, we have Max Force at Six Flags Great America. Now I originally put Goliath over this in 2021, but after a revisit and a mini marathon on Max, this has got to be one of my favorite launch coasters of all time. That first launch is one of the best moments ever. I absolutely love that first push. The rest of the ride delivers as well with some great hang time in their inversion collection, and even though this ride is short, it packs in 5 inversions. Number 23 is a roller coaster I got to recently revisit this past month. It is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando in Florida. This B&M Hyper has some of the strongest airtime I've ever experienced on a ride of this type, and especially that one floater hill at the beginning, this truly feels like you are weightless. The rest of this ride does not miss as well. From the speed hill to the surprisingly incredible second half, this ride delivers through and through. And if you get some night rides on this thing, it makes this ride even better. The number 22 spot belongs to Kingda at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. This has been a bucket list coaster for a while, and when I finally got around to riding this past year, I was very pleasantly surprised. It even exceeded the expectations I set for it. That launch is gradual, yet one of the most intense launches I've ever experienced. You feel the longevity into the pool, and the top hat is one of the most intense top hats I've ever experienced in my entire life. Even though this ride is short, it definitely delivers, and the ride setting is second to none. The number 21 spot goes to my home hyper coaster. The coaster that I've ridden more times than any other coaster in my life, Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood in Pennsylvania. This Morgan conversion hypercoaster is truly unique. From the first layout with the long drawn out elements over a cliff, to that second drop which is truly iconic, to the second half of the ride with all of the low to the ground aggressive airtime moments, this ride truly is something unique. I've gotten to ride this coaster on the slower days and its quicker days, and I really do admire this coaster from a standpoint that not a lot of people would agree with. From the sentimental values to the true quality of this coaster, I put it high on this list. The number 20 spot goes to another Six Flags Great America coaster. My favorite coaster at the park is currently Raging Bull. This was one of the original B&M Hyper coasters opening up in the late 90s, and this ride is still incredible. Especially if you sit in the back row, that first drop is second to none. You feel some of the most intense negative Gs of any B&M in the world, but the second half does not disappoint. You have so many low to the ground twister elements which definitely make your legs feel like jelly, and the negative G moments besides the first drop are pretty good too. The drop off of the mid-course brake run is a great underrated moment on the ride, and if you get an evening ride, this ride speeds up a little bit, so you're definitely going to have a good time. At the number 19 spot, we have another unpopular pick. This is Intimidator at Carowinds, my favorite Intimidator and my favorite B&M at the park. So why do I like Intimidator more than a ride like Fury? I think it has a lot more airtime, and even some of the positive Gs definitely exceeded my expectations. If you sit in the back row, this ride is like Mako, but much longer. You have those 5-second floater hills that last forever, and this ride just feels like it's never ending. At the number 18 spot, we have the coaster that was formerly known as Top Thrill Dragster. This is a defunct coaster in my personal opinion, but the reason that made this coaster so good was that late hydraulic launch. and even though we may not see this in the coaster anymore, it will definitely live on in my memory. I really hope that top hat does stay though, because that top hat is one of the most incredible ride elements on the planet. That climb and that drop is one of the best in the world, especially with lap bars. Coming in at the number 17 spot, we have my favorite coaster at Kings Island. This is Orion, the B&M Giga coaster at the park, and let me say, I was initially disappointed getting off this ride in its opening year. As someone who's gotten to revisit this park and ride it multiple times, I have to say my opinion has greatly changed. That first drop has got to be one of my favorites on any coaster ever, and every single element gives some sort of positive and negative forces, especially the speed hill and the camelback after, which might be one of my favorite sequences on every ride, and probably the reason that this is on my top 30 list. The number 16 spot goes to a very unique coaster and possibly another unpopular opinion. This is TMNT Shellraiser at Nickelodeon Universe in East Rutherford, New Jersey at the American Dream Mall. This ride is one of the most diverse coasters I have ever been on. From that pre-launch with some great hang time, to one of the most forceful launches I have ever seen in my entire life, to its incredible collection of inversions, to the break halfway through the ride that leads to the steepest drop in the world, getting some catching views of New York City, and it feels like an adventure. Speaking of adventures, the number 15 spot goes to Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. This has got to be one of the most iconic roller coasters on the planet, and opening up as the most expensive coaster on the planet, it definitely shows its price. With 7 launches through an environment that goes through the woods and several show buildings, this ride is a very impressive ride, and with a duration of over 2 minutes, this ride feels like it never ends. It feels like a constant adventure, and it has everything a family launch coaster needs. Several launches, a backwards launch, a drop track, and some of the best theming on any coaster in the world. This ride is pure fun. Going to Hersheypark, we have Skyrush. This intimate hypercoaster has got to be one of the most forceful rides I have ever been on in my entire life. That first drop feels like something I can't even describe, and it's got to be one of the most nerve-wracking moments on any coaster I have ever been on. The first drop, I don't even know how to really describe it, but it is very, very forceful. The rest of the ride is very forceful and out of control as well. And contrary to many people's opinions, I think the seat style and the restraints actually benefit the ride. I love the restraints on this thing, and I really think that this ride should get more recognition because it's crazy. Coming in at the number 13 spot, we have, once again, another unpopular opinion. This is Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom in Louisville, Kentucky. This ride is so underrated, and I really feel like a coaster later on this list is the reason, but I feel like these two can coexist really well. But if you take this ride for what it is at face value, you will have some of the most incredible airtime moments you have ever experienced, and honestly, this ride feels exactly like an RMC. And put this at any other park in the country, and it's going to get so much more hype. At the number 12 spot, we have Maverick, Cedar Point's Blitz coaster, the very first of its kind, and a coaster that changed the industry for the better. This ride is a very iconic coaster, and it makes many people's top 10s, but it is barely out of mine. If this ride is good at one thing, it is the whip. This ride's whip from start to finish whips you around every single time with no fail. And the comfy restraints along with the incredible negative Gs makes this ride a very memorable experience. My go-to row is definitely the back, because that first drop has got to be one of my favorite negative G moments of all time, especially if you get some room. Barely missing the top 10 is Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. This was a ride that very much surprised me. I was expecting good, but I got great. This ride was everything I was expecting from Voyage, and even more. This ride, especially in the back row, pulls you out of your seat every time. Take a B&M Hyper, but longer and more aggressive. Nearly every single camelback lifted me out of my seat for several seconds at a time, and it felt incredible. It also has some great laterals, and top that all off with an incredibly long duration, and you have one heck of a wooden coaster. Starting off our top 10 list, we have Millennium Force at Cedar Point. Out of all the coasters I have ever been on in my life, this is probably the most meaningful to me. And out of all of them, this might be my quote-unquote favorite coaster. Even though I've been on 9 that are better, this ride just means so much to me. When I first went on this almost 10 years ago, this ride changed my life. In talking about the ride itself, it has some of the best positive G moments on any intimate coaster. That first overbank turn gets me every single time, and the very graceful negative Gs on this ride really make this a very top tier ride. And I think something that this Giga Coaster has that none of the others really have is the setting. You drop beside Lake Erie, go through multiple tunnels, and go onto the island in the middle of Cedar Point. The number 9 spot is Jersey Devil at Six Flags Great Adventure, a roller coaster that many people would not put this high on their personal lists though. I really have to disagree. This ride from start to finish felt like a true adrenaline rush. Now, it is noteworthy to say that I only rode this past year when it was running a lot better than it did in its debut year of 2021. The first drop is incredible, all of the inversions on this ride flip you everywhere, and when I talked about Maverick's Whip, this is what this ride does the best. That camelback is reminiscent of some of my favorite airtime moments of all time, though this ride has a lot of variety as well. Luckily, I got to marathon this ride like crazy and even get a Zen on it with a good friend of mine. This ride is truly unforgettable, and I really hope that the hate for this ride decides to mellow. At the number 8 spot, we have another unpopular pick. This is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, my favorite coaster at the park and one of my favorites of all time. Starting off with the hang time, this ride does it the best. With that JoJo roll and the loops, this ride has it great. But talking about some other underrated moments of the ride, I think that the positive and negative Gs are very much slept on. Maybe I went on a very peculiar day, but this ride was running crazy. RMC level negative Gs and Intimidator 305 level positive Gs. I really don't know what was going on with this ride, but it was running like absolute crazy. Our number 7 spot goes to a coaster that is definitely dropped due to me getting more credits. This is Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom, and let me say, this is the ride that I feel like overshadows Lightning Run. Though, as you could tell, these two are very similar qualities on my list, I do think this ride has the slight edge for its abundance of airtime moments and its variety. It has inversions, and it also has some of the strongest and most aggressive pacing ever. That finale has got to be one of my favorites of all time. From the trick track double up to the double down, you are flying out of your seat, and by the end of the day, your thighs are pretty much gonna be jelly. The number 6 spot belongs to its sister coaster, Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. To be 100% honest, take everything I said about Storm Chaser and make it longer. That is my opinion on Twisted Timbers. Those triple camelbacks are some of the greatest moments on any coaster, period. Just pure weightlessness, and the rest of the ride is throwing you out of your seat in every which way. And now, we are at the top 5. Starting at our number 5 spot, we have Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. Quite possibly one of the most overhated coasters I have ever been on. The point I want to get into is, this ride has all of the qualities of a ride like Millennium Force, and the airtime like a forceful B&M Hyper. It has one of the best layouts on any coaster on the planet, and every single element provides some sort of force that makes the coaster even better. And I really think that the back seat is the magic seat on this ride, as every single camelback flies you out of your seat, and you get some of the longest duration of airtime on any coaster on the planet. You are out of your seat for most of this ride, and it really shows. That combined with some near-miss elements and some tunnels, and that riverside setting, and you got yourself one of the perfect Intamins out there. Another roller coaster I did not get around to riding until this past year is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Though currently standing but not operating, this incredible wooden coaster is something that I am really glad I got to go on in its current state. This is taking up the number 4 spot for so many reasons. The ride's airtime just feels straight up messed up. It's really hard to describe what the airtime on this ride feels like. It feels janky, but it feels incredible at the same time. Those camelbacks, especially when you're sitting near the back, are just straight up insane. Every single one flings you out of your seat at full speed. Not to mention that the Rolling Thunder Hill has some incredible negative Gs as well, some of the most intense on any ride in the planet, and the low to the ground moments, though lackluster, still provide to this incredible wooden coaster. Coming in our number 3 spot in bronze, we are talking about Jurassic World's Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. This roller coaster is almost perfect. It has everything that you want in a coaster and truly is the jack of all trades. Check this, it has theming, it has positives, it has negatives, it has a diverse layout, it has inversions, it has comfy trains, and it has a very long duration. The movie magic mixed with the incredible layout and the inversions are just a truly mesmerizing experience. The stall and the Mosasaurus roll are two of my favorite inversions of all time, providing some of the most incredible hang time of all time. And this is one of the few rides where I get off of and say, that was a complete coaster. I really don't know what I would do to change it. It is, well, perfect. Out of all of the coasters on this list, the number 3 and the number 2 spot were very interchangeable, so if you swap them, it would be pretty much the same. But the coaster that I gave the slightest of edges to is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This ride has almost everything. It is one of the most diverse RMCs out there. With the negative Gs found on most RMCs, you have some incredible positive Gs as well, with elements like that overbank turn and some of the low to the ground turns on this ride. And with that, you have some of the craziest, most aggressive negative Gs that you could ask for on a coaster. The twist and shout wave turn element over the station is just something else. It's such a weird feeling. You have some of the craziest whips, some of the craziest airtime, and all in one. From that all the way to its finale of back-to-back airtime moments, which get me every time. And this ride is many people's favorite coasters of all time. And I definitely understand why. It has the variety, it has the airtime, but something I thought it was missing was duration. So, what roller coaster takes my top spot? Undefeated for the last 4 years, we have the one and the only Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This ride is the closest to perfect I have ever experienced on a coaster. Now, if you don't know, airtime is my favorite part of a coaster, and this ride is the absolute ruler of airtime. With almost 30 seconds of ejector, this ride feels like it never ends. And this ride has all types of airtime, from low to the ground speed bumps, to outward banked top hats, to some of the craziest hang time filled inversions you will ever experience. This ride is the jack of all trades when it comes to airtime. If you want airtime, this ride is going to set you up with some of the craziest moments ever. And I love the non-stop airtime that comes at you with every single turn this ride makes. With over a minute in duration and a non-stop amount of pacing, this ride feels like it just never ends. And from the top hat to the finale, this ride ends in a perfect way. This in the front row is truly the perfect coaster ride for me. So, let me know what you thought about this list. This is my complete list. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about this video, and if you want to react to it, you can. Just let them know this is Cedar Flags. Anyways, we have a whole new year to look forward to, much more credits and many more adventures. So, this is Cedar Flags. I cannot wait till next year, and I will see you all later.